All right, love-hate running backs, and that brings us back to James Cook, who headlines the love list. James Cook drinks free today, and we'll get to more of that in a second after these sweet James Cook highlights here, Matthew. He's got the Chargers. Nice matchup for James Cook. Comes in as RB what for you this week?
RB3. Again, after last week's game, you're like, really, Barry, you love James Cook? No kidding. But again, love-hate is all about expectations. Player that we think exceed or fall short of expectations. And obviously expectations for James Cook are high. I don't think they're third best running back in fantasy high. But the truth is that since Joe Brady took over as their coordinator in Week 11, he has been the third best running back in fantasy, averaging over 24 points per game. He's basically averaging 21 touches a game. He's got a 15% target share in that stretch. And by the way, you mentioned the Chargers. Over the last month, the Bolts allow the 6th most fantasy points to opposing running backs in terms of fantasy. So James Cook, who missed practice yesterday because he was sick, drinks Emergency for free, or whatever flu drink you would like to do. By the way, Emergency, not a sponsor of the show, but your logo here could be.
Pretty good idea.
Yeah, just something to think about there for the good folks over there. But anyway, James Cook on the love list, top 3 running back play this week, assuming he plays.
Yep. So there's been a little bit of Christian McCaffrey MVP buzz because coming off the massive game against the Cardinals, which personally I just don't agree with. He's a running back. He does not affect the game the same way that Brock Purdy does, or Patrick Mahomes, or Josh Allen, or whatever. James Cook has the same total EPA this season as Christian McCaffrey. Like, James Cook is having a monster running back season. It's gone a little bit under the radar, I think, until last week, but 60-plus points combined the past 2 weeks, 4 games in a row of 16-plus points. I mean, he is as good as any running back in the league outside of McCaffrey right now.
Yeah, and by the way, we've talked about this, but he's actually left some points on the board. As good as he's been, he's actually left some points on the board. There have been a couple of miscues that, he's gotten cleaned up, and good for Joe Brady and the staff to going back to him. They benched him for one series because of the fumble, and he had the bad drop down the sideline, which would have been like a 60-yard touchdown reception, something like that. But still, James Cook, I think so much of the attention in Buffalo has been about why isn't this team performing as well? Why are they underperforming? Stephon Diggs hasn't been as good as we expect him to be. Are they going to make the playoffs even? So James Cook's performance has gone under the radar until that statement win against Dallas last week. But yes, should keep it rolling against the Chargers here in Week 16, just in time for the fantasy semifinals.
Our next one here, Rachaad White. Jay, Rachaad White, the second half of the season, has been one of the best running backs in football and fantasy football. Yeah,
he's been an absolute monster, and he's not just relying on being a PPR merchant, which he was for a time. I think the key for Rachaad White is that Baker Mayfield is playing the best that he has in, 3-4 years, and he's just unlocked this offense where now all of a sudden it was like, grinding your teeth just to get anything going. But now all of a sudden they are in scoring position more often. They have a bit more of a running game now, and they get a matchup against the Jacksonville defense that is really scrambling.
Yeah, no question about that. Jaguars allowing over 25 fantasy points per game and 140 scrimmage yards to running backs over the last month. And you think about Rachaad White since Week 7, right? Since Week 7, he's averaging over 20 touches a game, a 13% target share, and he's the 5th best running back in fantasy with at least 17 fantasy points in 7 of the last 9. He comes in at running back 5 for me this week. You see it there on your screen, just kind of the consistent production that Rachaad White has given you week in and week out.
Our next one here, our last running back that makes your top 10, Matthew, Breece Hall. It's been a tough go of it for Breece Hall in the Jets offense recently, but the fact is, as we've said all week, the matchup with Commanders gives you hope.
It doesn't give me hope. It gives me joy if I have Breece Hall. Like, again, nothing spells Christmas like the Commanders' defense. They give it away just like Santa. They've allowed at least 100 yards from scrimmage to a running back in 5 straight games. My Commanders have. Every running back, literally every running back, to see at least 12 touches during that span has scored at least 1 touchdown. And that stretch, they allow 31 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. They're bad. They have tuned out Ron Rivera. They have made their reservations for Aruba. They're just killing time. They're just punching the clock. I don't blame them. They want to get out of the season. We all do, right? And I got to be honest with you. If you look at their upcoming schedule, right? They play San Francisco next week, the Commanders, and then they play the Cowboys. And it looks like the Cowboys are going to need that game potentially for seeding, especially with the Eagles keep losing. Like, there's a chance that Week 18 game comes down to who wins the NFC East. And the Cowboys will need to win that game to potentially win the NFC East. So here's your chance, Washington, to lose this game and lock in a top 5 overall pick in the NFL draft, possibly even 3 or 4. Like, they've got a real shot here. This is the only game that the Commanders really, truly have a chance at winning. So you guys know what to do. Hey, Breece Hall, may I introduce you to this lane? Oh, no, would you like that? That lane is good too. That's fine. Just, you know what? Like, just, you ever seen the it's like a GIF, I don't know what you would call it, the GIF of the security guard, the old fat security guard who's just doing, this, come in, like not even
We already
not even
saw
trying.
this. The Eagles ushered him
Right.
into the end zone.
Oh,
So just
yeah,
get more
exactly.
of that.
That's what we're looking for. That's what we're looking for, Washington. You understand the assignment. We're not trying to win any of this. We don't need this game. Our season's over. You know what to do. Breece Hall's going to have a big game.
Yep. Now, the Commanders' run defense has been better, but still just doesn't feel like it's a real team at the moment. And I think that if it is, it doesn't look like it's going to be Zach Wilson. Looks like it's going to be Trevor Siemian at this
it's not
point.
trending the right way
so
for
I
Zach
suspect
Wilson.
that they won't be dropping back 45 times to Trevor Siemian.
No, and they'll dump off some
through
to
the
him as
game.
well.
Yeah, just get through the game.
Just get the clock going.
Feels like the Commanders win.
No!
It does.
Stop it. Blasphemy.
9-6 Commanders.
I don't understand why they're
Absolutely
3-point
not.
dogs.
17.
Sam Howell
Commanders.
gets sacked, fumble, defensive touchdown for the Jets.
That's all you need.
Keeps the closes the Commanders' lead to 21-7.
So.
All right, a couple others receiving votes. We mentioned Devon Achane on the injury report with the toe earlier, but he played through that last week. He's got Dallas. Top 20 play for Matthew. Chuba Hubbard also makes the list as a top 20 play, and then Tajay Spears against the Seahawks here, Barry, on the back end of playable running backs.
Yeah, we'll start with Achane, who gets a nice matchup with Dallas over the last month. Cowboys allowing 16 or more rushes of 10 or more yards. That's fifth most in the NFL. We just know what kind of a big play guy Achane is. He's had almost a 20% target share since he's returned in Week 13. Chuba Hubbard keeps getting a ton of work over the last month. He's averaging over 23 touches a game. Packers since Week 10, giving up 158 rushing yards per game. And finally, Tajay Spears. He gets more work in games in which they are trailing. Tennessee is the underdog in this game. In their last 7 losses, Spears playing 57% of the snaps. Since Week 10, by the way, the Seahawks allow the third most receiving yards to running backs. Obviously, Spears is their passing down back. Seahawks are favored in this game. They should be down. Who knows how much work King Henry gets in this one. I do think Spears is he's more of a desperation flex. Let's be clear. It's the Week 16 playoffs. He's only my running back 34. But if you're in that range, I do think there's some upside with Spears this week that there wasn't maybe necessarily last week.
Yeah. Also, I don't think there's any real downgrade for the Tennessee offense if it is Ryan Tannehill instead of Will Levis. Certainly doesn't impact the spread.
No.
All right, we go to the hate list, which is headlined by Austin Ekeler, who's had a tough go of it this year, and with the Chargers offense, Easton Stick under center, Keenan Allen still hurt. This is an offense that's really going through it, Matthew. They got the Bills where they are double-digit underdogs in this game.
This is one of the toughest one I really struggle with. Look, we love Austin Ekeler. He's been on the show multiple times. He is somebody who is a friend of fantasy. He's not only appeared on our podcast, but on multiple fantasy podcasts. He embraces the fantasy community in a huge way. Jokes aside, he is an investor in fantasylife.com, my startup, so I have a business relationship with Austin Ekeler. I love Austin Ekeler. Top to bottom, absolutely love him. But Austin Ekeler is a very astute fantasy manager in addition to one of the best running backs in football. And an astute fantasy manager, Austin Ekeler, would tell you that running back Austin Ekeler just hasn't been up to snuff lately since Week 11. He's just running back 32 on a points per game basis with single-digit fantasy points in 4 of the last 5 games. He's played below a 60% of the snaps in 2 of the last 3. And it's not a great matchup. Over the last 4 weeks, Buffalo gives up just the 3rd fewest fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. So Ekeler, who has all sorts of talent and has said the right things to the press, wants to finish the year strong. He's playing for a contract. He understands the fantasy implications better than probably any player in the NFL. So he wants to end it strong. I have him inside my top 20, just barely inside my, it's like I'm like at running back 21, like right there on the edge. But he makes the hate list. As much as I love the guy, and I have to call it like I see it, and I think he would understand that as well.
Yeah, I think the issue too is not just that it could get out of hand quickly, and it might be a redux of last week where in the fourth quarter, he still played a couple snaps in the fourth quarter, but it was pretty much the Isaiah Spiller show at that point. But it was early in the game. He wasn't getting all the work. Like, they were alternating series. It was Ekeler, it was Kelly, it was Spiller. So I just don't think probably as well just with his physical state. Now, he has looked better, but still he's been dealing with injuries all year. I just don't think in a meaningless game they're just going to run him 20 times.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think he's healthy. And I want to be clear about this. I have no inside information. I haven't talked to Austin in quite some time. So I have no inside information on this. This is just me watching the same games and the same film you guys are. He doesn't look right to me. This is a guy who's one of the toughest and most explosive running backs, pound for pound, in the NFL, and he just doesn't look like that guy. To me, he's gutting through it. And so, yeah, I mean, chances are if you made the playoffs, you did it despite or without Austin Ekeler, not because of. So hopefully you have better options. But if you are forced to start him, I think he's a borderline RB2 that you hope gets into the end zone.
Our next one here, Jay, James Conner. For Conner right now, I mean, he's got Chicago, which is tough against the run, but he's not impacting the game as a pass catcher at all since he's been off the IR.
Yep, there's that. There's the fact that Chicago's run defense is top 2 in the NFL with New England. And then there's also the fact that Kyler Murray, he just vultures so much of the goal line work in terms of rushing, where Kyler is almost the best rushing threat as a quarterback near the end zone. Arizona's been incredible at converting their red zone opportunities into touchdowns, and Kyler Murray is the biggest part of that. So James Conner is just a far cry from what he was at the start of the season with Josh Dobbs.
To your point, Connor, about the passing down work or lack thereof, in the 5 games since he's returned from IR, James Conner has 9 receiving yards, like total. Like that's not what he's averaging per game. Like that's total. They're just not using him in the passing game the way they have in previous years. And the other thing is you might say, oh, but like he produced against San Francisco last week. Yes, he did, but not till the end of the game, not till that game was well out of hand. And I just don't think the Bears offense, though I like them, I don't think they're the explosive kind of offense the way San Francisco is. I think Arizona's going to be able to keep this semi-close, which means that I don't think the Bears all of a sudden are putting in their second-string defense, and now all of a sudden Connor's running against backups in a game that's meaningless. Like I think this will be semi-close towards all the way through. So he's just my running back 28 this week, and don't love it. Literally one running back has rushed for 75 yards or more against the Bears this year. It's a terrific defense.
Our last one, Javonte Williams, he's got the Patriots. And while New England's been one of the worst teams in football, Matthew, they have completely eliminated running backs in fantasy over the last month.
They haven't allowed a running back rushing touchdown since week 10. No running back since in the last 4 weeks has rushed for more than 46 yards. Like not a high bar to clear, and yet still no running back has rushed for more than 46 yards against the Patriots. They actually allow over the last month 2.6 yards per carry to opposing running backs. That's best in the NFL. And then you're like, okay, yeah, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire had a good game against them. Yes. He got a broken, there was a dump-off pass for 48 yards. It was kind of a busted coverage. And then he caught, like on a scramble play that was, where Mahomes extended the play in the red zone like he does brilliantly. Found him in the back of the end zone for a jump ball where Edwards-Helaire was probably like the 4th option on that play. It was just, in other words, it was like 2 fluky plays that sort of made CEH's day last week against the Patriots. And otherwise, they've been really, really good defensively. I have Javonte Williams because you still see a little bit of Samaje Perine and Jaleel McLaughlin in this one as well. He's running back 30 for me this week.
Yep. The other issue there is it's not just that the Patriots have an amazing run defense, it's that their pass defense isn't very good either. So that's how you attack New England, and it's that combination just makes it so difficult for teams to actually run with success against the Patriots.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest RotoWorld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.